off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We are live, facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, youtube.com, the Hockey Podcast. You can like us on, of course, follow us on Twitter, podcast_hockey, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, where we are at the late, great Pavel Dimitra of subscribers, or Mark Pouliot as well, another name that wore number 78. You can also subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. We have a very broad, exciting podcast to bring. Hello, Tyler. How are you?
I'm good. It's kind of weird. 3 times in 8 days being on this show.
Yeah, what do you like? You're like the Montreal Canadiens and the Vancouver Canucks in COVID times here.
Yeah, I guess so.
Look like playing a lot of games in a number of days here.
We're cramming it in.
No back-to-backs, though.
No, not yet.
We would have started earlier, but I guess we have to blame Chris for this late disappearance. Chris is doing the William Nylander of our hockey podcast today. Running late. That's okay, though.
yeah.
I forgive you, Chris.
Yeah, we won't bench you.
We won't bench you. We are glad you're here. Devin, hello. You're not late.
No, but I thought I was coach, so I'm benching him. You guys have no say in the matter. No, I'm good, Kev.
And hello, Sean.
Hello, Kevin. Yeah, it's an okay day here in Calgary. It's snowing again. We're April 25th, and we're still dealing with snow here. So, but we've got some good hockey talk to get to today, and I'm excited about that.
Yes, we do. If you do have any questions and comments as we get through this, feel free. But I want to start with pulling up the old NHL hockey standings here of the Scotia North, which is where we primarily follow along here. But we look at the standings here, and we see Toronto starting to put away the North and winning the division. Winnipeg in second place. The Edmonton Oilers in third place. But down in the 4th, 5th, and 6th, the Montreal Canadiens sit in 4th. But a game in hand of the Calgary Flames, who won 2 in a row against the Canadiens, pull within 4. And the Vancouver Canucks, who have 5 games in hand and 8 points back. Let's start with Devin. Do we have a playoff race?
No.
We do not have a playoff race.
I mean, I don't think so. I think it's just hopes and dreams at this point here. I'm not totally convinced that Canucks or Flames can catch Montreal, even though it is mathematically not out of the realm to do so. But it's fun. It's fun to have this belief. That's for sure.
We'll go Tyler.
Yeah, I'm going to say not yet. I mean, it's you look at the points column, right, and you think, oh, boy, that's exciting. Then you look at the games played column and think, well, okay, yeah, games in hand, but you got to win those games in hand. And it's still a little bit of what-if territory for me, but the Canucks coming out of their extended layoff 3-1 is encouraging. Although I have to agree with what Elliot Friedman said after the broadcast last night. Now that the Canucks are going on the road and the intensity of the schedule is going to increase here, that now we'll really see what they're made of there. But yeah, not quite yet. And for the Flames, I mean, kind of the same thing. I if we can see a couple more wins here out of them over the next, say, 3 games, then I think it'd be a little more tantalizing.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm a mix of an optimist and a realist. So, like, part of me is excited at the possibility of what could happen. But as Tyler just mentioned, like, with games in hand, those other teams have to lose for you to make up that ground. So it really just depends on how the rest of the schedule plays out and who ends up winning more games. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, the Flames did a good job getting the 2 wins versus the Habs in these past 2 games, and really kind of making things a little more interesting, a little more fun going into this next couple weeks here. It's going to be very tough for the Canucks, and I'm keeping my expectations low, but I'm gonna sit back and enjoy the ride, whatever it is, though. I'm not going to sit back and poke holes at everything and say, "Oh, look at the schedule. It's tough. There's no chance." I'm going to sit back, be a full-on fan, and cheer them on, and hope that they find a way to pull off something that is miraculous and fun and exciting. If the Canucks are able to do that, the story is insane. And they're going to go up against Toronto, and if they do that, that means they're probably beating Toronto again, at least 1 or 2 more times this season, and they're going to have the confidence that they have a chance to do something up against the Leafs in the playoffs, because that's probably who they're going to play if they make the playoffs. So at this point, my expectations are low, but I'm ready to be proven wrong and to be living a fun, exciting lead up into the playoffs. Because right now, yeah, you look at they're 8 points back with 5 games in hand. Canucks are 6-3-1 in their last 10, while Montreal's 3-7-0. So everything's trending in the right direction. But yeah, the schedule is going to be the biggest opponent for the Canucks more than anything else at this point. But let's try and keep I want to see Canucks fans and everyone try and keep a positive look in terms of okay, let's see what happens, instead of just poo-pooing anyone who wants to get excited about this.
Well, the way things have transpired over the last week, my concern during the layoff and then leading up to the comeback was most of this is not even going to be worth watching. They'll be so far out of it, and it hasn't been that way. I mean, the way things went for the Habs while the Canucks were not playing, and then the 2 wins against Toronto, and yes, a hiccup on Thursday against Ottawa, but back in the win column last night, it's this is still worth watching. They may fall short, but it's still well worth watching now. So that part of it's exciting for me.
And if they do somehow miraculously, sorry, Devin, I'll let you go.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
If they do miraculously make it against Toronto in that first round, you make it to Game 7, third period, all bets are off.
There's a lot of optimism. A lot of optimism on the Canucks side here.
That's.
I think it's more just we want to see it happen. We've got, I think, a realistic idea of where they're at as a team, but who knows? You can throw all the math and models and percentage of reaching the playoffs as you can towards me, but I'm you know what? At this point, I just want to see them play games and see if they can do something, and I'm excited to see what happens going forwards.
And that's completely fair. Being a Flames fan, let me just, I want to expand on my comments before. I just haven't, yes, they've made some good ground. They won the 2 games against Montreal, but I still am not buying into what the Flames are. They every time that they seem okay, yes, we're doing well, they just disappoint me. And I just feel let down every single time. So, and especially within the playoffs, they made the playoffs, great, but it's been a while since they've had actual success and sustainable success. So that's why I'm not as optimistic as Canucks fans. But if Canucks fans want to do that and get a higher draft pick or a lower draft pick, yeah, that'd be great.
The thing here is the reason I actually do think that there's a bit of a playoff race here, and it's not because I think the Flames are making small steps, not amazingly huge steps, but they're making small steps. And the Canucks have played well out of COVID for sure. Out of they haven't been. I did not think last night was a spectacular game. That is not a game that I want to watch again. I'll say that. That's being nice. But the Canadians, they're without Carey Price. They're without Brendan Gallagher. I think they lost. Romanov got shaken up last night.
Thomas Tatar.
They are not healthy, and they are not. They're not healthy. So I'm wondering that I'm thinking the way that the Canadians are going, they could have put this away a long time ago, but they haven't, and they're making it a race. So to me, this is more about the Canadians than it is about the Flames or the Canucks in my mind, where they're at. The Canadians are not, I mean, if you ever listen to it, you think Canuck fans are hard on Jim Benning? Dominic Ducharme is not getting a single bit of love in Montreal right now.
No. Well, here's the thing. What kind of heat is Marc Bergevin facing? Like, I'm glad you bring this up because I wanted to talk about it on this show. Sometimes, too much activity from the general manager can be detrimental to a team. And we have to ask that question now. I mean, nobody's been more active than Marc Bergevin in the North Division, and they're sputtering now, and he has no ability to make any more trades. So, what? Come on, the heat should be on Mark. I mean, he's had years there,
and they are trying to get Cole Caulfield into the lineup to make his debut, and they do not have the cap space to do it. They have last night. You need to put Primo on the taxi squad if you're going to get Caulfield to play. Is Jake Allen able? I'm not dismissing Jake Allen, but if you're asking Jake Allen to do something, to play a lot of games here, to me, that's what's making this more of a playoff race, is what's happening in Montreal, not necessarily what's happening in Calgary or what's happening in Vancouver. It's what's happening in Montreal is making this more interesting than it probably should be.
That's realistically a combination of all three.
Yeah. And relying on Jake Allen to have that load on top of him to make a push for a playoff spot, I would not put that on him. He has shown in St. Louis that he hasn't been able to do that and have that mental load on him, and I just don't think he's quite there. So if they are going to falter, it's going to be the fact they can't score goals and they can't stop the puck. Period.
If they can't score goals, why don't you? They need to find a way to bring up the goal scoring wonder that is Cole Caulfield.
And this has been their issue for a long time. Just a note on goaltending depth too. They had Caden Primo playing last night. I mean, I know nothing about him, but he's 0-1 so far.
He wasn't terrible last night, though.
But I mean, between him and Jake Allen, you got to be feeling a little uncomfortable with that. I mean, Carey Price needs to get back ASAP.
Yeah, we don't know how long Carey is going to be out with his concussion, because I believe that's what he has. He's been put into concussion protocol.
That's right.
So yeah, and do not, we talk about all this, but do not underestimate the loss that is Brendan Gallagher.
Yeah,
he is the heart and soul and the engine of that team.
Yeah,
and you can have players like Corey Perry who can drag your teammates into the fight. You can have players like Josh Anderson who can do that as well. But I don't think there's anyone who does that better in the NHL than Brendan Gallagher.
And as far as what he means to the team, basically what Bo is to the Canucks, Gallagher is to the Habs. He's just that engine that throws the team onto his back when he needs to, and just motors.
Yeah. And with the Habs right now, they've got a busy week coming up. They've got a game tomorrow versus the Flames, then Wednesday versus the Leafs, and then a back-to-back on Friday, Saturday. Friday versus Winnipeg and Saturday versus Ottawa. And if they can find a way to break out of this 3-7 slump that they're in, that'll go huge. But if they don't, we may be looking at next Sunday when we're doing our podcast and having the Habs on the outside looking in, depending on how the Flames do this week as well, because they've got 3 games this week as well. They've got, again, tomorrow versus Montreal, Thursday versus Edmonton, and then Saturday versus Edmonton as well. So there is, this time next week, I think we're going to have a bit more of we could have a clearer picture, or it could just be more mess. So it's all up to Montreal, because if Montreal can go 3 of 4 this week, I think that all but makes it realistically tough for both teams, both Calgary and Vancouver, to make that ground up, especially if one of those 3 wins for Montreal is over Calgary tomorrow. But if they don't, they go 500 or 1 for 4 or even 0 for 4. That opens the door wide open. Like, we're talking bay door all the way up, and you're driving a 10-ton forklift through it.
Yeah.
Sean's visual references today.
You know what's crazy though about the Canadians too is that they everybody was talking about how much depth they have on defense and how well it is structured with Ben Sherratt, Shea Weber, Jeff Petrie, Joel Edmondson, and the young kid Romanov. And they made a couple of moves for a little bit more depth at the deadline for defense. And they have Eric Gustafsson, the power play wonder. He's playing 4th line. He's playing as a forward, which is crazy. So I don't know what they're trying to do there. And within that defensive structure, obviously they don't trust Eric Gustafsson enough to play defense. I mean, doesn't that just blow your mind?
Well, that's been sort of the history with him, though, too, is no one has trusted him to play defense for some reason or another. That was the issue in Philly. That was the issue in Chicago and Edmonton as well. Calgary used them as a primary power play thing. So that's been one issue. To me, the problem with the Canadians is right up the middle. I mean, Suzuki has been strong, but they need more from Kotkaniemi, Danault, Evans. Those 3 specifically need to get going. Like, Tyler Toffoli has been an outstanding acquisition. Josh Anderson, don't like the contract. He's been pretty good. You can't hate what Corey Perry has done, but up the middle, they are not strong. And that's been a huge, I mean, I love Nick Suzuki, but I think they need more from Kotkaniemi, and they certainly need more offense from Philip Danault if they're going to go forward here. And I don't think Eric Staal has been something to write home about.
Danault's been the biggest disappointment for them up the middle. He was close. He was probably a top 5 Selke guy last year. Put up a decent amount of points. Was their shutdown center, and he just hasn't been able to follow that up this year. And you needed him to do that. They needed him to do that because, as good as Suzuki can be, he's still young. He's still inconsistent. Kotkaniemi is even more inconsistent. They've even thrown him on the wing at times. And then you've got then they, after that, they've got like Paul Byron, Jake Evans, Eric Staal, lots of good lower in the end of the roster players. But what they're really missing is a bona fide top 6 center that you can trust to play all situations. And none of Suzuki, Danault, or Kotkaniemi have stepped up to be that this season, as good as they have looked at times.
Yep, for sure. To jump to the Flames, I think a huge loss was Noah Hannafin got hurt last night. It was really not a dirty play or anything like that. He got hurt. Did not come back in the game. That is a huge loss for the Calgary Flames. So Hannafin has been playing so well, no matter if he's played with Tanev or Rasmus Anderson. He's been outstanding. That's a huge loss in my mind. First of all, so if he's not able to come back, that I think puts a bit of a crank in a lock in where the Flames are at. Means you have to play Gio more, and I think Gio has played well, but I mean, there's certainly a decline. And also then you've got the other issue here, and maybe we'll start with Devin on this. Michael Stone, after 2 periods yesterday, played more than Rasmus Andersson. So, and I bring this up not because I'll find the Sutter clip here, maybe that or someone can have that found about what Daryl Sutter said about Dylan Dubé, and sort of, I think it's been kind of fascinating with Sutter and his use of the younger players. He hasn't loved them as much as I think Flames fans believe that they deserve. Maybe, is that the fair way to say it?
That's valid. It's Rasmus Andersson hasn't had a good year, period. He hasn't been. He's a step behind where he was last year, and I think maybe that the contract is within his head. You do find after after they step up into a different contract, a much more prominent contract, that might be within their head, and they feel like they need to play more than they need to do more than what they have been doing, when the solution is just keep on doing what you have been doing and you'll be just fine. And Daryl Sutter, he's an old school guy. He likes the old school players. That's why Stone, he's gotten more minutes, and it doesn't surprise me. Am I concerned? No. But it's all about the process and making sure that those young players know what they need to do game in, game out to be successful within this league and get more minutes. So it's like you said before, Kevin, it's about the process of it and making sure that they're all on the same page. Because if they're not, then things can get a bit or have a bit more friction to them, especially between the coach and those players. But I feel like within the tenure of Sutter as of right now, that there shouldn't be any rhyme for concern at all.
Anyone else on that? I'll take that as no.
Sorry, I was grabbing the Sutter clip. I'll pull that up.
Okay, thank you.
For everyone.
Yeah.
I had to go through and get through to where he actually says what he said about Dubé, because I think it's a very good clip from Daryl there. There it is.
On a more consistent basis, very simple. I mean, with 15 games without a goal, playing with one of our two best centermen all the time. Very simple. He's got a skill set that he has to use every night consistently. If he doesn't, he's not a very efficient player.
Daryl Sutter press conferences, they're just
straightforward. Tell it like it is. Hey.
Well, I liked his comment after the game last night when someone asked him what the mood in the room was after beating the Habs 2 games in a row. He's like, I don't know. They're probably tired. They played 2 games in a row.
Yeah, you're not getting kumbaya from Daryl Sutter, and
No. He's the fun police around there.
Yeah,
well, he's jubilation from that face.
Well, he's and that's what you expect him to be talking to his players, being straightforward. This is what I need from you every single night. If you're not going to do it, you're going to get benched.
Yeah, and even sorry, sorry for interrupting. I was just say even from the game Friday, empty net goal from someone, and Sutter is yelling at someone on the bench. It looked like an assistant coach at the time, but he wasn't happy even when they were scoring. So, like, he has an expectation for this team, and if it's not being filled, he's got to go with the Michael Stones and the old reliables, the Stones, the Brett Ritchies, the old Sutter reliables. But Andrew Mangiapane, I think he's been a guy that he's found a way to thrive through Sutter.
Last night we were talking in our chat about those comments from that Sutter made about Dubé, and I think they're right. Consistency is a huge deal. Dubé is only 22, but he needs to find a way to take that next step, and a big piece of that is consistency. And when I at the end, that what I said is I think that Mangiapane's found that consistency and found that next level to become a true top six forward. And when you look at this quote from Daryl Sutter about Mangiapane being a team leader in grit and determination, that's huge because that is a big part of Mangiapane's game. And what makes him successful is he outworks everyone. And that is something Dylan Dubé needs to take a page out of Andrew Mangiapane's book and look at what he does. Look at what Mangiapane's doing, because if he does that, then they have then he'll take that next step, and the Flames will have two hard-working top six forwards that they can move forward with, and maybe that helps them make a move in the offseason to help balance out the lineup that I still think is a bit out of balance going into the 21-22 season.
Well, and if you Pat Steinberg, they had practice today, and he tweeted out the new power play units. Mangiapane is on the top unit, and Tkachuk's on the second now. And Tkachuk's another guy who needs to find his game. We've said it till it's blue in our faces about how he's completely changed his game ever since that Muzzin puck flip incident at the beginning of the year, and that can't happen when one of your top uprising leaders on this team isn't playing the way they needs to. And Mangiapane, I guess, is taking it to Tkachuk and on the ice, and it's really, really good to see Mangiapane do that. But God, if one of the reasons why I'm not so confident with the Flames, even if they make it in the playoffs, is Tkachuk isn't being Tkachuk, and that can't happen.
Yeah. I just Keegan with the question, was that a shot at Giordano? I don't think so. I actually don't think Gio has played I think Gio's played pretty well the last little while. I think whatever Chris Tanev is doing is working for him. That's been a good pairing there for sure. Not a dig on Anderson. I just think whatever Tanev and Gio just seem to click a little bit better. And so I haven't hated Gio for the last little while. Another guy that I think has been I think thriving though a little bit more is we have been hard on Johnny. We pulled the stats up, but Johnny, the last few games, he's got that look in his eye that I haven't seen in a long time. Hell of a goal, hell of a shot last night. His first goal to tie the game. And I don't think he cares if he's playing with Monahan or not. I think he's finding his game.
I think both of them are.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Johnny isn't. I'd say Monahan was relying on Johnny more so than Johnny was relying on Monty. It's very apparent that Gaudreau is that high-end player that we always think that he is. It's just the consistency isn't quite there sometimes, but he has found another level here. And I think when Sutter came in as head coach, one of the interviews that I saw of him was talking about how they need to have somebody to kick him in the ass pretty much and make sure that they are doing the things that need to be done. And Sutter's gotten the best out of Gaudreau and even recently Monahan. It's been actually quite a breath of fresh air for both of them, and us as fans too, seeing that they can correlate outside of each other.
And what works for that too is I think we're seeing that Sutter not be afraid to put them together for a shift or two throughout the game as well to help create some more offense. And I think that having them separated and then being able to throw them together every once in a while, I think is a good flexible top six setup for the Flames at this point.
Anything else with the Flames that we need to get into?
Other than just adding from it, that was a seeing eye shot. Like, that was one hell of a shot for Johnny.
Yeah.
And a great pass from Tkachuk as well to set it up.
Yeah. Yeah, there was and then nice pass from Mangiapane too, and then Buddy Robinson made an appearance last night. Hell of a hit on Sherratt. So, yeah, we'll see what the Flames will see. I think a big game Monday. I think that will tell us a lot about what's going on there with the Canucks. 3-1 since they've been back. Getting really strong goaltending from Braden Holtby. But the lineup is interesting. We're still not seeing Cole Lind, and we're not seeing a lot of Zach McEwen, a guy I think we were expecting to see more. We'll start with Tyler there, kind of what your thoughts on the lineup has been. I'm not trying to be super nitpicky in terms of like they should be playing this, that, or the other, but the lineup choices have been interesting.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the fact that you look at the standings and it would appear that they still have some kind of a shot at the playoffs. The coach is going to go with what he knows over the unknowns, and I think that's the only thing that really works against a guy like a Cole Lind. I do like, however, now that they're starting to get people healthy again, Elias Pettersson notwithstanding. If your game's slipping a little bit, you're going to lose your spot in the lineup, and that happened to Jimmy Vesey, and so hopefully he'll work on his game and find a way to get back in the lineup. But Zach McEwen made an appearance last night. Not to me, not a huge factor. I don't think if I were the coach of the Canucks, I don't think I would be going with guys with no experience at this point when you need every point possible to try and stay in this playoff race. And so for Cole Lind, he's going to have to wait for his opportunity by the looks of it.
Yeah, in between like the brain fog and the conditioning and all that sort of stuff that comes with coming back from having COVID, like a lot of guys are going to be getting their chance. So like whether that's Zach McEwen, whether that's Gravovic, whether that's like you name any of like the bottom six guys that are basically musical chairs right now, yeah, everyone's going to get a chance. Everyone's going to have a game or two, but unless you impress, you're not likely going to get more than one of those game or twos.
Yeah, as much as I wanted, the curiosity in me wants to see Cole Lind. At this point, Travis Boyd has been okay. I think he had a bad game in that first game versus Ottawa. A couple absolute pizzas that he was able to give Ottawa chances to score on power plays of all things. But I think Zach McEwen's gonna stay there. I think he played well for the limited minutes we saw last night. But he's still coming back. I don't know how rough he had it too, right? Uh-huh. So and this was the easy part of the schedule for the Canucks. So I think going forwards, I think we are going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 3 new players per game in those back-to-back situations coming up here, because it's as Chris said, that the coming back from COVID, from all accounts, is really, really tough, and you can't stretch these guys too much. You have to have your top guys play as much as possible, as long as you're not putting them in undue harm by doing so. But I think I do think we'll see Cole Lind play. I do think we'll see more from Zach McEwen. I do think we'll see some more Tyler Gravovic as well. I don't foresee the Canucks going through the rest of the season, even if they are pushing hard and pulling something miraculous off. I don't see them doing it without having significant turnover, especially in those fourth line roles, in players game to game.
I mean, I think you almost have to look at it like goaltending on back-to-back games. Now you have to get some fresh legs in there each game, given the situation that they're dealing with right now.
Yep.
Although, first of all, I'll start with the good here, though. I know that the Canucks Twitter exploded with the Tanner Pearson contract, but Tanner Pearson has been one of the better players coming back from this and got the game winner last night. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that, we should forgive or I'm not saying # thank you, Jim, for this. contract at all, but credit to Pearson for playing well.
I think people were so focused on his production for the beginning of this season when looking at that contract and comparing it to other contracts that have been signed. But when you go back and look at his career, and you go back and even look at last season and the season before, like, he's consistently up close to that 20 goal mark. And I think he's still a good player. He's still right now, he's still a top 6 player in my mind. He's not someone that the issue for the Canucks has always been Tyler Pearson should be on a good team should be the third piece on your second line, not the second piece. And going into last year and then going into this season, he's been the second piece. Now with Hoglander stepping up, you can make that argument, and I think it works really well with the if they're fully healthy, the setup that they can have. Again, I still think he's a good, useful player for the Canucks. You can quibble about the contract, but I think you need to separate the contract from the player when evaluating how useful the player is right now.
Yeah, and then let's just talk about goaltending. I think most Canuck fans are still in agreement that Thatcher Demko's your number one guy. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, Holtby has the net. Let him keep it. Both Holtby and Pearson brought to the Canucks partly because of their past experience and their Stanley Cup winners. And yes, you are paying a premium for that, but I think that experience is starting to show for the Canucks at a time of great adversity here. And they were key factors in the game last night, and just what I guess with Holtby, what a relief, because earlier in the season it was at the point where, like, we can't even play this guy, and we signed him for how much money and how many years. So the fact that he's delivering quality goaltending now and give Demko some time to find his wind again, like literally. He was having some trouble even getting to the bench during commercial breaks there on Thursday. Let's just keep riding with Holtby for now, I would say.
Yeah, that's a nice little turnaround for sure.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Demko is still not quite 100% from everything, and yeah, you just Holtby's in a groove too. But you're gonna have to play Demko at some point, especially once the back-to-back start, and go from there. And hopefully Demko will be recovered by then, because what looks like big news coming out of the Canucks is that they're finally making a move to get Mikey DiPietro some games. I almost called him Rick. Jeez, talk about going back to old stuff. But finally getting Mike DiPietro some games with sending him down to Utica. Yeah. So they're gonna have that's fantastic. They should have done this a long time ago. I think the Canucks right now are in good shape goaltending wise, with Holtby finding his game, and I have no doubt that Demko will find it once he shakes off the COVID after effects.
Canucks play Monday at 4 Pacific against Ottawa, then Wednesday 2:30 Pacific, a bit of an odd start time, and then you got the back-to-back Thursday 4:30 Pacific against Toronto. So that's where we'll probably see both goalies and maybe some shuffling in of bottom 6 players.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're not playing yesterday's Ottawa Senators. It's still a team that battles. I'm not saying they're getting there. They're certainly growing, so that's not going to be easy. And I don't know if this is much of a surprise. I guess to me, the one part that Benning's communication of this was Benning, I guess. But it looks like, according to Chris Johnson, Pettersson's out not expected to come back for the year. I'm not saying that that's a big surprise, but perhaps one of those Jim Benning communication lessons.
On that one, I had one of my friends suggest, is it possible that maybe Petey's representation wants to go the shutdown route here? like if he comes back early and doesn't perform very well, and he's got the contract negotiation coming up, that could kind of work against him. I have to wonder a little bit. You'd have to think maybe there's some machinations that we're not hearing about there, from PD's representation as to when they think he should get back on the ice.
Out of all people on this podcast to bring up a conspiracy theory, you're the last person that I would think about.
Well, it was suggested to me, but I think I don't think we should discount the idea that maybe the Pettersson camp doesn't want to rush him back as quickly as the Canucks would like to see him back there.
Yeah,
I think I was onto something there.
I don't think they're going to want to rush him back and bring him back before he's 100% healthy. But everything we as fans know about Pettersson is he's a battler. His compete level is way up there, and he's probably just chomping at the bit to get back though as a hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's probably some truth to it, but I think if Petey could be back, he'd be back. Like he'd be back, and he'd be trying to help the Canucks at this point.
Yeah, that's what we'd all want to believe. And I believe you had an Instagram post yesterday or the day before, and you kind of hinted at how much he's missing it. So I'm sure he's eager to get back. But yeah, Jim Benning, I believe I'm just paraphrasing, but I believe he said they were hoping he would be back before the end of the season. It wasn't so much of a promise per se. So Chris Johnston's report there last night is it's disappointing, but not entirely surprising that it's looking not very good to see Petey back before the end of the season.
To
Just throwing the hypothetical out there, though, if we make the playoffs, do we think that there's a chance he plays?
Oh, yeah, I think yeah. The threshold between playing and not playing it over injury really moves quite a bit once you're talking about playoff games.
I would not be surprised if they get close, if we start seeing him during that final 4 games against the Flames.
Yeah.
If they're mathematically into it, if those games are being played, wouldn't be surprised if we see him in there. But the other counteract to that, if I'm betting, and I say I see injuries in 2 of his first 4 years, is that an issue? If you're conspiracy theorying out that Pettersson's camp's holding him out, if I'm betting, am I not concerned that there's an injury prone here? Do I negotiate that way?
No, you
can't.
Not that early in his career.
There hasn't been enough injuries in my mind to start thinking that way.
No, and that's why you need to have those 4 games, or get him in as soon as possible if the Canucks are going to make the playoffs, so that transition of going from not playing any games to playoff intensity, that's even more possibility of injury in my mind.
You just want to ease him in, not throw him into the fire for sure.
Yeah, you want to make sure he's healthy enough to be out there and not potentially sustaining or re-aggravating the injury or sustaining a worse injury because of it. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be using that as any sort of negotiating ploy. If they do, that's lowbrow in my opinion. But I don't see that. I see them looking at him as being a top star for them going forwards, and they're going to have to find a way to get as good a deal with him as possible, especially when you've got him and Quinn Hughes to sign.
Yeah.
And remember, it's going to be short term, and they're going to have to find, and it's going to be short term, and they're going to be really cap strapped next year as well, to try and fill out that lineup to be competitive and take that next step. They desperately need a third line center. I see Chris Faber was in our chat, and him and I had an interesting discussion on Twitter about what they do with Pod Colson when he comes over, because he's one of those like responsible players that you could throw in as a center potentially, and that fills out that 1-2-3 down the middle.
Yeah.
There's your goddamn replacement right there.
Yeah, but to Chris Faber's when we discussed it, he's watched Podkolzin a lot more than any of us, and he thinks he's better suited to be just a good forechecking monster, like 200-foot winger. And if you can find a way to find a center to play with Podkolzin and keep the Pearson, Hoglander, Horvat line together, keep the Lotto line together, and find a center to play with Podkolzin. And then here, like for me, you put Mott on that line. There's a great 1-2-3 punch in terms of lines that you can throw out there in any situation. And that third line could be a line that you can throw out there in matchup situations and take a little bit away from that from Bo Horvat. And I think that's what the Canucks desperately need to find going forwards. And they're gonna have to figure out how to patchwork stuff together for the rest of this season, because not only are they missing Petey, they're dealing with everything else. But going forwards, if they could find a way to build a third line potentially around Podkolzin and Tyler Mott, I think that could be fantastic, because I don't think people realize how important Tyler Mott is to this team. I don't think people realize how much energy and just ability to drag the team into the fight that Tyler Mott has.
Well, I mean, if people were watching the bubble hockey last summer and didn't notice that, I don't know what to say to them.
Or even at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
God, he was on fire.
Yeah. Great seeing him back last night as well, by the way.
Yeah, I was looking at when we had Kevin sent out the agenda, I was looking at some of the time on ice for the Canucks, and it's kind of crazy. Tyler Mott only played like 7 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time, but he played 9 minutes on the penalty kill last night, and was a huge reason why the Canucks won last night was the penalty kill.
Yeah,
for sure. Anything else with the Canucks?
Well, speaking of penalty kills, at least last night's game wasn't as over officiated or inconsistently officiated as Thursday. I mean, I have to say that was pretty frustrating to watch on Thursday. Although I don't know, Sean, I think if it was you that brought it up in the group chat, or maybe I saw it from scouting the refs, but apparently the two guys that they had out there on Thursday, I think, have statistically called the most penalties this season or something. So not. It wasn't, I guess, isolated to just that game. That was the trend with those officials. And if that's the case, then it's kind of on the players to make the adjustments there.
That's a scouting the ref stat. That's not something I look at. I'm too irrational to look at all that stats.
Well, I thought you might have looked it up and shared that with us. But they're on that stuff.
It has been just we'll go on a quick rabbit trail here, but it certainly was an interesting week for the officials. Overall, you had the Montreal-Edmonton series that was tackle football, that Oiler fans were outraged at how that was called.
Oilers media too.
And Oilers media too. You had that. You had Montreal fans. I think you look on Friday that Gio O'Donnell hit on Dano was an elbow that got. This was not. You're gonna. I don't know if you'll come away with the officiating this week feeling very happy about it. It wasn't the best week for it, but overall,
a little all over the place. And as much as we want to complain and moan about it, it kind of came full circle for a lot of the teams, and then you got to find a way to battle for these players. You got to find a way to battle through it. And I think the power plays were pretty slanted towards Ottawa last night in the Ottawa Canucks game, and the Canucks were able to kill them off, including that double minor that Virtanen took. That was huge. And then the Canucks looked like absolute crap on their 2-minute 5-on-3.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's probably the thing that sort of drove me the most nuts last night. And of course, you could just feel it right away. As soon as there's back to 5-on-5, Ottawa had another jump in their step and tied the game. And then thankfully Tanner Pearson salvaged it for the Canucks there afterwards. But, yeah.
Well, even the Flames were undisciplined Saturday. They took yesterday 3 straight penalties that almost cost them. So, the power play is going to be very, very interesting. I mean, even you look back, if the Flames don't make the playoffs, you look back at that game last Sunday that the Flames in Ottawa played, where they had 3 power plays in a row in the third period and did nothing with them, right? So,
oh god, it's the Flames power play. Just to go back on, since we're talking about now, is not dynamic whatsoever. It's just pass around. That's all it is, and I see very similar. There are similarities between them and the Canucks in that sense too. But the Canucks seem to find a way more than the Flames do, and they say, God, it's frustrating.
What frustrates me with the Canucks passing is not so much passing; it's just kind of throwing the puck in the direction of one of the other players, and so often it's just not a crisp, easy to receive pass where you can make the next move really quickly and efficiently. And it's like they're constantly fighting just being able to make a pass, and then those opportunities to get a quality scoring chance are just not there.
Yep. Keegan with the nice shot, Brett Ritchie with the nice trip that led to the goal. Good point. Yeah, touche. Yeah. But power plays will be key. And it's now, to move on a little bit here, it's getting this week also, I think there was a lot more pushing, a lot more shoving, a lot more in-your-face stuff. Specifically, Joe Thornton of Devin's Toronto Maple Leafs and Nikolai Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets had a conversation that went on for a pretty long time yesterday. Maybe we'll get Devin's take on it. I don't know if we have the niceness, the conversation that was going on there.
I don't have the conversation just yet, but I do have what led up to it all. And it's playoff, like it's late April. Everyone's in playoff hockey mode, including the refs. They're letting a lot go. There you can see the little jab that Ehlers had there.
I mean, Joe's a pretty big dude to fall that easy, isn't he? Like, I'm not against Joe Thornton, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, there's some performance. There's some performing there.
Yeah. For sure. I actually don't even see why Joe was talking him going up the ice. Something must have happened because otherwise, I don't know. But I love the intensity. I love this type of hockey. This is what we all crave for, I'm sure. And let it happen. Let's bring it on. God. It's still snowing here in Calgary. Let's play some hockey. God.
The chirping between the Jets and the Leafs. It's unfortunate that we're not guaranteed to see them in a playoff series this year, because if it would be fun. It would be a lot of fun from an outsider's point of view to watch that. And it just full on like a little bit of a tangent here, but could you imagine Winnipeg versus Toronto with fans?
Oh,
the Winnipeg fans would be insane. It would be amazing. And that's just, again, things we're not going to get this year, but if there's a Winnipeg Toronto series this year, it's going to be a war, and it's going to be fun to watch.
No kidding. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, he is a shit disturber. The reverse hit from Sandin for Wheeler last night was fantastic.
Nothing wrong with it though.
No, not at all. Bieksa was talking about it in the intermission about how, if that was Ratko Gudas, he'd be a bit more cautious of what he was doing there. But when you're reaching in like that, God, you got to make sure that no matter who's out there, you got to protect yourself and not reach in like that and have that reverse hit. God, I love doing reverse hits as a hockey player, and when you catch somebody like that, it's a good feeling.
And and even Paul Maurice benched Scheifele in the second period yesterday. Scheifele took a lap around the ice. You can see that it was a Dubois. It was the final shift Dubois-esque moment for Mark Scheifele. Maurice benched him for the second period. He pulled Connor Hellebuck on Thursday after 3 goals, but Hellebuck wasn't happy about it. So Paul Maurice is putting his stamp on the team. And they were fighting for that first place, and you want to get in that position. You also, I think, if you're Winnipeg or Edmonton, which looks like I'm more than 50% certain we're seeing that as a first round matchup, you want to make sure you get home ice. So even though, yes, there's no fans, and can you imagine fans for that series, by the way? Oh my. You
want last change is what you're saying.
Yes, you absolutely.
Yes, that's the thing. Yeah.
That's the thing. You want last change, and and you imagine fans from Montreal, Toronto. By the way, while we're at it, can you imagine that?
That'd be chaos. Oh, chills. Gives me chills.
Yeah.
Long overdue for a matchup of those two in the playoffs. In regards to Scheifele, I've got to tip my cap to Paul Maurice. It's a bold step to do that, and it's amazing to me like how often players will just coast their way to the bench. I mean that happens all the time at the NHL level. But after a really long shift and then doing that, and just kind of the way the game was going, hopefully all the Jets players have received the message that the urgency needs to increase, and that starts with leadership. Players and Mark Scheifele, hopefully has learned his lesson, and we'll be hustling a little harder out there.
Yeah,
I think that's a great time.
We all like Mark Scheifele here, so we're not down on Mark Scheifele, but that didn't look very good.
I think it was a great time to do it too, because you look at the standings, and it's not like you're battling too hard for a playoff chance, a playoff spot, and you need everyone running. You need everyone pulling in the right direction. Going into these final 9 games for Winnipeg, and they need to find a way to start cruising. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. They've lost 3 in a row. They need to turn this around, because if they don't, then they're going in on their back foot into the playoffs. And I think it's about an 80% chance that it's going to be Winnipeg, Edmonton in that first round, and you cannot be going in on your back foot against McDavid and Draisaitl.
No,
even if you've got a significant advantage in goaltending with the Oilers having Mike Smith out, whoever they put out there, whether it's Smith, Stalock, or Koskinen. You got to find a way to be rolling, because if you're rolling and you're going up against those goaltenders, it's going to be a series. If you're not, it's going to be really tough to find a way to get past the Oilers in that situation. So I think it's a great time for Paul Maurice to send a message and say, look, it's playoff time. You got to find. You can't. Every shift counts. You cannot take a shift off like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I agree. Although I will have to say, though, I know we don't like Mike Smith, but he hasn't been horrible this year.
That's the bar for Oilers goaltending. They weren't horrible.
Mike Smith hasn't Mike Smithed it up yet.
Well, no, but at the same time, to give Mike Smith some credit, he does play well in the playoffs. Yeah,
he does, but I'll still put my money on Connor Hellebuck if I'm picking a goalie between Winnipeg and Edmonton. So, as I said, I think they need to find a way to get back going and back rolling. Because if they aren't, they're ripe for the picking.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on here, as we
also speaking of goalies. We had quite the interesting goalie issue with Ottawa last night.
Yeah, we should probably Kevin Woodley offered his services last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
here we go. I've got it.
This is great. I'm glad you found this.
Yeah, Artie. We had Artie dressed and ready to go.
Let's go. Show some road there.
I mean, it's not that stiff.
Did you see that belly on him though?
It looked like me if I put some goalie equipment on that.
God.
Oh boy, yeah. No emergency backup goalies present apparently during this pandemic season. Can't remember who pointed that out on Twitter. I'm thinking it was Joey Kenward. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, Ottawa had two of their three goalies injured. So the one that was in the net, and then he got crashed into by Zaitsev, I think it was. And so it was just like, oh my goodness, are we going to some obscure goalie here? One more injury, and that we could have seen something pretty hilarious there.
Where did Keegan's comment go? He had a great comment. Sorry, Devin, I have to. He said this. He brought up David. I'm sorry, I had to. It
was David Ayers and the rest of the Carolina Hurricanes that night. Yeah. They really picked it up for him. I know. It's a little bit unfair. People say that the Leafs lost to a Zamboni driver. No, they lost to a Zamboni driver and a pretty good hockey team as well.
You look, it was Steve Dangle that brought up the Zamboni driver in the epic rant. So, if you're going to give him the airtime, he's got to take the hit, and we have to give the media perception. But on a serious note, though, in the playoffs, you have to address that there has to be an emergency goalie available.
Yeah, but what are the chances that you're gonna have three goalies go down to injury?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
the chances are low, but at the same time, there's still a chance.
Yeah, it still is.
David Ayers still had his opportunity.
They had Anisimov ready to go.
Could any of you play goal? I mean, I maybe could have done it.
I can't even imagine putting the goalie skates on. I'd be falling down all over the place.
I played field hockey as a goalie, and I know that's completely separate and different, but I feel like I'd be okay. I don't think my knee would be able to hold up.
I did the same thing. I was talking last night with Heidi about one of the games where I got thrown in net playing field hockey, and it's a different game, but it's being thrown into a completely different world too, because hockey as a skater is one thing. Hockey as a goalie is a completely different sport. It's crazy. And then Jeremy Harris we got to see former Flame Freddie Brathwaite dress up for the Silver Knights last night.
Yeah, I believe Hockey Night highlighted that as well. What is he, 48 or something now?
Wow. The other thing is I don't know what the if there's going to be any postseason for the AHL this year. So I think the teams will be able to call up their AHL goalies and have them in their bubble at that point.
That's good.
Yeah, I just there's got to be a better way to do it. Is my point. Whatever, for the playoffs, you cannot, even if it's a 4% chance of something like that happening, I think that's on a serious note, they need to make sure that that's fixed. But I mean, you look just to throw a scenario here with the Leafs, if you're going with Jack Campbell and he gets hurt, and you're going with David Riddick and he gets hurt,
Hutchinson.
You got Hutchinson. Yeah, but still, I mean, Colorado was in it can happen. That's my
that's pretty much how it went for the Avs.
And not
last year.
Not one game though. No, not in one game.
No. If you've got three goalies there with the team, and in the playoffs, most of it's played every second day. I mean, it is extremely, extremely unlikely you'd end up in a situation where you've got an emergency fill-in playing.
Dressed, likely playing.
The Leafs have two goalies on their taxi squad right now. Actually, they've also got Venny Vivalainen. I think.
He was picked up from Columbus earlier in the year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just quickly go down. I know that nobody watches the Florida Panthers, but we really should be watching the Florida Panthers. I wish that there was a way to watch more Florida Panthers hockey. When maybe next year I'll advertise for ticket availability for them or where the rink is and stuff. Because Alexander Barkov, come like that guy was, if he was anywhere else,
Yeah.
like people would be talking about this guy as a legitimate top 4 or 5 player in the National Hockey League, and an MVP candidate.
Yeah, he's so underrated. I don't think people realize how skilled he is. Every once in a while you'll see a highlight pop up, but he's so skilled, so smart. Like, it's if he was in any like middle to bigger market, he'd be an absolute superstar.
Yeah.
Well, we've been saying this for years. I think we all know. I don't think this is a light bulb moment being like, oh yeah, Sasha Barkov, yeah, he's pretty good, eh? We've been saying this for years. So he needs more of a platform for sure. He really does.
Because he did this last night, and it's just
did the McDavid.
It's a no look overtime winner.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah.
Watch,
good for him and good for the Panthers.
Yeah. Well, for a team to watch this in the playoffs this year, the Panthers are a team to watch. You talk about goaltending depth; they've got it. They've got Bobrovsky, Dreger. Even Spencer Knight's played a game this year for them. They've got Huberdeau and Barkov, and
Sam
Bennett, who's been on ripping it up.
Yeah. Well, I imagine down the stretch, Sportsnet will probably schedule a few more of their games.
Hopefully
between the Canadian teams, so that'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, I guess, to get into as well is we know ESPN is going to pick up the majority rights. That's already happened. But the question is the secondary rights. According to the WWE, and according to a tweet I saw, the NBC is not into it, according to what the WWE was told. However, Chris Johnson said NBC is in there, Fox is in there, and Apple TV is apparently bidding for some games. I'm not sure if that's going to be a secondary package or is this going to be a streaming option or not. But
I would imagine that's strictly streaming, but yeah.
I mean, what I mean is it joint, or is there going to be exclusive streaming right games? Are they going to get, how big of a package that's going to be? That's going to be an interesting question going forward. But
from what Chris Johnson said last night, it sounds to me that Fox is the leader right now in terms to get the remaining bits, but I think they're gonna Apple might sneak in there and get a little bit more as well, a little bit of it as well, and I think that'd be great because streaming is the future.
I could see Apple having like a game of the week, exclusive game streaming type of thing. We've seen the NFL and Major League Baseball experiment with exclusive content available via streaming. So maybe the NHL is ready to dip their toe into that as well. I have the same feeling too. It just feels like, based on the little bits and pieces that float out on Twitter, that NBC maybe doesn't want to pay up the kind of rights fee that the NHL is looking for, and maybe saying, it's been a great run here, but we're going to move on. And if it is Fox that steps in, I think the NHL is in really good hands with Fox. I mean, obviously they had the rights before in the 90s. They've got Kenny Albert in their employ that could instantly be installed as their lead play-by-play announcer. Production-wise, I mean, they have enormous depth between what they've done with the NFL and Major League Baseball. So, and at the same time, Fox is not afraid to try new things. So, I wouldn't have any issues if I were an American hockey watcher moving over to Fox to see the games.
And they have most of the regional action in the States anyway.
Less Bally Sports now, but they did, yeah.
They did, yeah. Fox Sports, the Fox Sports Regional got sold to Bally's, and now it's Bally's Sports.
Yeah.
But
in
there would
terms
be
of depth and experience and all that,
Yeah.
they have lots to draw from there.
yeah.
And then you look at NFL and you look at English Premier League as well and Champions League. They're all on DAZN for streaming, and it's not hurt them in all. NFL it's on both terrestrial television as well as the streaming with DAZN. So if you have that combination of things, I think it works really well.
Yeah, now we've got to remember the ESPN ABC deal that has the Stanley Cup final on ABC every second year. So the NHL's clearly going to want to be on an over-the-air network for those alternating years. And if it's not NBC, Fox has to be the only other real option.
Yeah.
I'm all for the whole like streaming is the future thing. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is like, let's say Apple is successful in their bid and they get a substantial amount of games, and especially if they're exclusive. As someone who identifies as like an Android guy and doesn't really have anything Apple or subscribes to anything Apple, like that definitely is a detriment to someone like me. But I can definitely see like with how big of a clientele that Apple already has, I can obviously see the appeal for that. I'm just not necessarily a fan of Apple in particular. I would be more of a fan of like DAZN, trying to be more competitive in that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the league has to say, okay, it's got to be available cross-platform or something like that. I'm
not expecting Apple to get significant amount of games. And remember, this is also the American broadcast rights. Rogers still has full exclusivity on national games in Canada. But I like the idea of Apple coming in here because it opens things up. And I agree, Chris. I think they need to go away from those brands where you have to buy a certain device or download certain things there. That I don't know the ins and outs of Apple TV, but going into the streaming world, I think is something that the NHL needs to do.
Mm-hmm. I would think that Apple TV has a plan going forward if they're bidding to be a bit more available in some way, shape, or form. So I'm assuming that they're thinking ahead. But let me just ask, though, Chris, if Amazon got involved, how would you feel about that?
If it's just as exclusive as potentially as what Apple might be considering, I'm still just as against it for the exact same reasons. Right. I don't actively own anything Amazon. I don't have a Prime account, nothing like that. So like for me specifically, it's not ideal, and I feel like I would have to like sign up to something that I might not necessarily use just for the sake of getting access. But that being said, they have a big enough clientele base that I understand the appeal for it in general. It just might not be the best fit for me.
Yeah, and I believe you can still. I'm doing some quick research on that, and I believe you can still just get the Apple TV app or go on their website and watch it that way. So I think there will be ways to do it. And if they are serious about this, they'll have to find a way to work with other operating systems for them on mobile and with computers and everything. So I think if they are serious about it, they'll have to do that. So that will open things up.
I'm just talking on a purely like hypothetical, like big concept sort of idea at this point, like not get into the nitty gritty details of like how they actually execute. That obviously they have to iron that out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting. I mean, I'm imagining Amazon and the Kraken will have some sort of relationship going forward at some point during their tenure in Seattle. I'm just thinking.
Yeah. Oh, they will, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do some sort of TV show or show about their first season. Yeah. The NHL and the Leafs are currently working with Amazon to do a show about the Leafs season right now. So it's going to be. I think that's part that big thing too, because you're talking to a guy who got back into Formula One because of the Netflix show Drive to Survive. And I remember seeing someone tweet out some stats on the amount of growth that F1's seen because of that. And that's something the NHL needs to look at. And hopefully this Leafs show will help that as well. But they need to start expanding out. And if Amazon is willing to do that for the first season with Seattle, that would be very cool. From expansion draft to last game of the season would be phenomenal if they do it right.
We're talking in like the same sense as like what HBO did with their like in the regular season and then playoffs a couple of seasons back, right?
You're talking about Road to the Winter Classic?
Yeah.
It's similar, but I think they follow for the whole season. And Amazon's been doing this with a bunch of different sports as well. I know they've done it with a couple of the English Premier teams. They've done it with like McLaren in F1 as well. So they have done it before, and they're just following behind the scenes, telling the stories behind like that you don't get access to just watching the games.
I mean, the other might be going on a tangent here. The other something I just been thinking about with the success of The Last Dance from Michael Jordan, there is a lot of opportunities for the NHL. And this is one area I think the NHL has dropped the ball on, is bringing back some historic content. Like bring back the Canadian Dynasty team, those Islander Dynasty teams. Wayne Gretzky, like some of those stories. I mean, I know that maybe if you haven't seen them, and everyone has this perception of 80s hockey, but to hear those stories, I think for me would be that is missing content that I think the NHL needs to pile on. I mean, as an example, wouldn't it have been great when Patrick Marleau broke the record? Because everyone was all like, how dare you touch Gordie Howe? Like to have some Gordie Howe content and say, look, we respect what Patrick Marleau did. And the reason we respect what Patrick Marleau did is what Gordie Howe did as well. And let's take the historical context of it instead of like having media people say, how dare Patrick Marleau play one more game than Gordie Howe?
You're talking about Rosie DiMano there from the Toronto Star, are you?
Yeah, I will write 10,999 articles and I will stop at 11,000. Okay.
Yeah, don't think so.
But just to follow up, Amazon's got their series All or Nothing, where they've covered Tottenham Hotspurs. Like I said, I think they've done ones with Man City, Arizona Cardinals, with NFL, the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. So they've done all over the place, like the Brazilian national football team. Like and that's what they're doing with the Leafs. It's an All or Nothing series about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And please let that happen with Seattle. And you start with the expansion draft. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Even the NFL show. What's that? What's that training camp? Hard Knocks. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, you said we go back to they've had Road to the Winter Classic. I feel like they've had multiple incarnations of that. Like you learn about Bruce Boudreau and ice cream and all that, but you still get to see some fun stuff, like Ilya Bryzgalov, Mr. Universe, being afraid of bears. Like you get to see some of that behind the scenes and the personality of the players. And we talk about how the NHL doesn't sell the personality of the players enough and sell the players enough. That helps. Yeah. So All or Nothing, Toronto Maple Leafs will be very interesting to watch when that gets released. And then hopefully they just build on that and get more and more stuff like that, because you're going to get different fans because of that.
Yeah. And with the Amazon tie-in, wouldn't it be a prime opportunity?
Oh, Chris.
That was pretty
Look
good.
at how excited he is at himself.
That was great. So
I enjoy horrible puns. What can I say?
That was awesome.
that was pretty poor, that one. But
I enjoyed it myself.
We'll move forward.
So speaking of things to watch, the U18 tournament, the men's U18 tournament starts tomorrow. And I know, first of all, it's in Texas. I know that people are imagining hockey in Texas. It's going to be very interesting. One rink in Frisco will have fans. The other one will not. When Canada's group, Canada starts Tuesday against Sweden. I haven't just done an interview with Derek Neumeyer previewing the tournament. I'm writing an article about it, and we'll put that up. And Peter Labardius and I will have a chat tonight. So I'll have that argue on tonight, talking from his perspective. You can watch most of the games. The Canadian games mostly will be on TSN. You can also go to hockeytv.com. I don't know if they'll have play-by-play for some of these, but I paid the $29.99 to purchase that. And if anything else, I don't know if Sean has the clip. If there is one reason to watch this tournament, there's a few other reasons, but I'll just wait here as Sean magically. A couple things from the WHL perspective. The Logan Stankoven, Kamloops Blazers, going to be a first round pick. Assistant captain, I think. Quiet guy that a lot of people are, when we talk about this guy, this is another guy, Logan Stankoven, a guy to watch. Alberta, another Brooks Bandit defenseman, Coleman Kamalis, will be in this tournament, going to be a high draft pick. And this guy is going to be there. This guy is 15 years old. To put this in perspective, he's 15.
Yeah, it's pretty Patrick Kane-esque.
That disgusting.
That is, Connor Bedard is going to just, if you want to watch a guy before he's cool, if you want to be a hipster, if you want to be a hockey hipster, Connor Bedard for sure will be a guy to watch. And Shane Wright playing his first games of the year as well, 2022 first pick. Expected first pick, and a lot of other names in this thing as well. So it's going to be it's a good tournament to watch. I wanted to make sure that we plugged that, not because I'm writing articles for him, not only because I'm writing articles for him, but because because I do think it's a tournament worth watching.
It's one of the tournaments that I don't think people watch enough, because everyone talks about the World Juniors. But I don't think people watch enough of the U18 tournaments, especially this one, because normally you don't get the full team, like the full best Team Canada out there, because the CHL playoffs are still going at this point. But right now you're basically getting the best players at this point, and you've got. Yeah, Stankoven, you've got Bedard, Shane Wright. There's been a lot of talk about Bedard on this podcast, but I don't think we talked enough about how good Shane Wright is going to be. I think he's a 2022 draft pick, I believe.
Yeah, expected first pick. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of skill that's going to be on display in this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. And also Dylan Guenther of the Edmonton Oil Kings. And some people think he might be the first pick in the draft. So,
well, this 2021 draft is all over the place.
Yeah.
I think because you've got Brant Clark, you've got Owen Power,
Luke Hughes.
Like, there's a lot of really good defensemen available. Then you've got Dylan Guenther and others. Like, we talk about how the difference between players and how different draft lists can be. The differences between draft lists this year is going to be just mind-boggling, because you're gonna have people like yelling and screaming because some guy got picked 2-3 that they had in mid first rounds, and they go top 5. That's how wild this draft is going to be.
Yep, for sure. Anything else we do want to cover that we did not? Tyler, I knew that's our shout-out.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge Sidney Crosby with a buzzer-beating empty net goal last night, clinched himself another point-per-game season, and that's now 16 point-per-game seasons to start his career. The only other player in league history who has done as well as that is Wayne Gretzky, and Sidney commented on that after the game in typical, humble style. Sidney Crosby not trying to make too big a deal of it, but did note that being able to do that does show you how long he's been playing. And there was a time 10 years ago where there was a lot of uncertainty about Sidney Crosby's career with concussions and whatnot. So to see him come back and still now 10 years later and well into his career, performing at such a high level still is something that let's not overlook. It should be acknowledged. He doesn't get the headlines that he used to with a lot of other great young talent around the NHL, but good on Sidney Crosby again for 16 consecutive point per game seasons in to start his career.
Any other?
Yeah, it's insane. Like I think we take how good Sidney Crosby is for granted because, as you said, the amount of really good young players out there that are getting a little more attention now, especially in this season where the Canadian teams don't get to play against him. And we're so focused on that this North Division that I think we've forgotten how good Sidney Crosby is.
Well, the other thing with Sid too, I mean, nothing's ever going to top the golden goal in Vancouver. So anything he does, it's just like, yeah, well, of course we expect that of Sidney, but just wanted to get that in there. And even the empty netter last night. I mean, I think I got it up on my phone here. I think he shot it from his own goal line in the corner and managed to hit that empty net. So. Way to go,
and
Sid.
killed people's betting dreams or made people's betting dreams with that.
Yes, I believe Elliot was talking about that.
It broke the spread as well as the over-under with that goal.
Yeah.
and we are in a betting reality now with hockey. So that's big. That's a big story in and of itself. Let alone the stat that you brought up with how many point per game seasons he's had.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know if this is where you were going, Kevin, but I think we need to give all the stick taps to Jonathan Bernier for his performance yesterday.
Oh yeah, that too. I wasn't going to go there, but yeah.
The Stars outshot the Wings 51-12, won in overtime. Thank you, Jamie Benn, for giving me some fantasy points. By the way, made me happy. But 51 shots and you allow 2 goals. Like, it's just mind blowing. Stick taps all around for Jonathan Bernier in that performance he put in yesterday.
Yeah, that was it.
And there's a guy of all goaltenders out there that really needed a big performance for a confidence boost. So good on him.
Yeah. I was going to give mine to Dan Joyce last night. He did the national anthem for the Calgary Flames. It was Hockey Fights Cancer for the Flames last night, and the Flames gave him an opportunity to sing the national anthem. And he killed it. He killed it. He did a great job. So great little thing there. And Jimmy Jug last night, did I say his name right? For the Vancouver Canucks, did a great job of the national anthem as well. So I had those 2 shout-outs.
Yeah, a couple good emotional tear-jerking moments with those 2 doing the anthems in Calgary and Vancouver, respectively.
Anything else? All right, we'll wrap it. We'll leave it there. How do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Canuck 03, and as of right now, Devin is currently trailing in his semifinal matchup in the fantasy hockey. So, Dev, you need to step up because we need to have a brother final.
It's 2 points.
No, it is. You're really, really close, and I've got a bit of a lead, but it's still close enough that anything can happen at this point. So hopefully we'll be in the midst of a brother battle for the final in the fantasy hockey come midweek intermission.
You guys enjoy those playoffs because I missed it by a long shot.
I'm on Twitter at T-Noble, T-N-O-B-L-E.
I am at Schneid's on most social media.
I'm at Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
I am at KVOLE. I am 5 points behind in my playoff bracket. So, I mean, if you're gonna just wish some luck, I could use it. Not many games today, but we'll see. Yeah. So KVOLE podcast_hockey. The Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. Subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back Wednesday. Probably after the Senators and the Canucks battle at some point in the evening will be our midweek intermission. We are all there. We leave as we leave you. We also leave this question for you: why are all these hockey stars named Connor? Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.